Hello, and welcome back to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and we are continuing on our expression tool expedition. We are still in the expression designer, in the main part of the expression designer, but we are going to be looking at shapes now. And shapes, there are several things to know about shapes. So let me just get you to there. First of all, unlike normal expressions, when you double click, it will not take you to the expression selection dialog box. Something else will happen. It will give you some stretching handles, which I'll get into momentarily. So the option of double clicking to get into the expression selection dialog box goes away with expression shapes, or shape expressions rather. So sometimes you have to get to this expression selection dialog box in a different way, and I just clicked in the score to add a new one. And at the bottom of this, the technique text category here, I have some expressions that I've created. So I'll just show you a few things about these. We'll select this X here and choose edit. And now you can see that I have shape selected as opposed to text. And so anything that was in the text field here is going to be ignored, and you're only going to see the shape. Now there are several shapes that you can use, and if you choose the select button on the right hand side here, you will get the shape selection dialog box to appear. Now all of these shapes will come with Finale out of the box, so there are some preset ones available to use right away, but you can obviously create your own with the create button, or duplicate and edit with the edit. And when you do that, if I were to edit this X shape here, it will pull up the shape designer, and it's hard to see, but it is in there. If I zoom in a lot, you will be able to see that X. There it is. Now, this shape designer is its own special beast in Finale, which I promise at some point I will do a tutorial on how to use the shape designer, because it does appear in many different places in Finale, including the expression designer right here, as you can see. But for now, what we're concerned is the shape selection. So we've chosen the shape that we want, and we select it, and that becomes a shape that we're using. Now, these edit and create buttons that are right next to select, these are actually shortcuts to get to the shape designer itself of that element. As you can see, it's pulling up exactly where I just was had I gone through the select and then pressed edit from this window. All right. And create will do the same thing. It will take me to a blank shape designer, the same as if I had chosen select and pressed create down here. All right, so just a couple different shortcuts to get there, and I'm just going to cancel all that to go back to normal. So now I've got my X. So that's these three buttons and what they do. Now let's talk about stretching, because there's an option here called allow horizontal stretching. And I mentioned within the score itself, when you double click one of these expressions that are a shape, you will get these pink handles here that will allow you to stretch the expression. Now, there's two separate ways that Finale stretches shape expressions, and it's sort of important to know the difference. Technically, this expression here, oops, didn't mean to do that, wrong key combination. Technically, this expression doesn't have allow horizontal stretching checked. However, it will horizontal stretch if I were to move these pink handles. In fact, it will vertically stretch as well. So that allow horizontal stretch doesn't really, it's not really related to this aspect of stretching. What it is related to is certain shapes, in this case, this one where I've got this bar rest shape laid out in this measure, and this one is stretchable and this one is not, by the way. That's why I've put that little text right there to indicate that. And if I go into the designer here, you'll see that I have allow horizontal stretching checked. And what the horizontal stretching is, literally it will stretch this expression relative to the size of this measure. And it will do that if I insert measures. So what I'm going to do here is insert 3 measures before this last measure here. And you'll see that that stretchable expression shape got a lot shorter, right? Now this one, which is not set to be stretchable, did not get any shorter. In fact, if I go back and delete those 3 measures again, watch this one now, it will remain the same exact size, and actually there's a lot of leftover space in that measure. So that stretchable option within the expression designer part over here is specifically for that function. It really only has to do with adding measures to this to the system there. And interestingly, even if you stretch the measure manually, now I'm in the measure tool and I'm going to make some manual adjustments to the width. Unfortunately, this will not stretch that shape expression, which is odd to me. You can manually adjust the width any way you want, and it will not stretch that shape. It's only when you add measures or subtract measures to the system where these stretchable shape expressions will actually stretch. All right, so it's just that's just how it works. It's a little counterintuitive, but that's what it is. So the other way to stretch any shape expression is to double click it, and which again will pull up these pink handles, which will allow you to stretch it. And you can do this with any shape expression. Here's the trill, and actually if I were to stretch this a little bit, you'd see the flat character get a little bit farther out to the right. So there's some weird things that can happen when you start stretching some of these expressions. The reason why the trill is going to the right, but the TR symbol is staying put, is because these are actually font characters that get placed in the shape designer itself. So the fonts themselves, the characters within the fonts themselves actually won't stretch. But certain elements within the shape designer will stretch, like lines, which is why this expression, for example, will stretch. Now, there is one other thing to know about this. I'm just going to go back into the expression selection dialog box, choose this this three parallel angled lines here just to show you something, and we're going to go to the shape. I'm going to show you where this is in the shape selection dialog box. You can see it's sort of up here, and it kind of looks like that. The thing about stretching shapes in this manner by double clicking and stretching is that it permanently alters the shape itself in the shape designer. All right. So again, if I were to go back, let's go back to the shape expression designer, and then go back to the shape selection. If you notice, this is now stretched out. So again, it's permanently adjusting the actual shape itself. What this means, this is important to know, because what this means is that if you use this shape more than once, let's say if I put this in the next measure, let's choose the same one, right? And it seems that, okay, well, what I can do is then stretch this one, right? So now I can have the same shape, but in sort of two different versions of it. But initially it will look okay, but if you do anything like redrawing the screen, what will happen is that essentially you're permanently altering the shape itself, so it affects it in both places. The way around this is that if you need similar expressions that use the same shape but have different different widths or something in that regard, what you actually need to do is duplicate the expression. And interestingly, when you duplicate an expression that's a shape, like I'm about to do, what happens is that it also duplicates the shape in the shape selection dialog box. So now I have a new shape here in the shape selection. Here's the original one all the way over here, and it duplicated it and created a new one. All right, so I have two shapes and I have two expressions. They should be a copy, but they're technically not. This is the new shape, right? And if I select that new one to apply, now I can go and stretch this one, and when I redraw, it doesn't affect the original one. All right, so it's a little bit counterintuitive, but that's actually how it works. Whenever you stretch the element in the score, it actually physically changes it in the shape designer itself. You can see that it's really a lot wider now compared to the original one, right? If I were to go to the shape designer for this one, you see how short that is versus this one. See how wide that is. So it is a weird concept, but that's exactly what's going on, is that when you make those adjustments all the way in the score, it's going deep into the program and actually adjusting the shape itself in the shape designer. All right. And then finally, one more thing within the shapes. Let's go back to this X. This last option here called hidden. If I were to select that, what you will get is the X will be in the score, and it doesn't look like it's hidden. This is a little bit different than many of the other things that you hide in Finale. In fact, if I were to just hide this text expression, just hit show to hide it, you'll see that it gets a little grayed out. And actually, I can do the same thing by selecting this and choosing the hidden option here for the text, right? It will do the same thing. You'll get it grayed out. But interestingly, it will not gray out the shapes, all right? And however, it's still checked that it's hidden, so it will appear like this in the in the Finale file, but it will not print. It's just how that works. It's a weird little oddity about the shape expression. I have a feeling when I get into the shape designer a little bit more, I think I know why that is, because the shapes themselves can actually be um, grayed out a little bit. They can be shaded. So if you were to shade this when it's hidden, you wouldn't really know if the shape itself is actually shaded or if it's hidden. So that might be why when you select that option here to hide it, that it doesn't actually gray out, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between an actually hidden shape expression versus a shaded shape expression, if that makes sense. So that's shapes, and that is that sums up the main part of the expression designer, which is this first tab here. All right, so we've pretty much covered it all. All right, so thanks for watching. Come back and we'll start taking a look at, we'll skip over playback and go to positioning next for expressions. And so come back and I look forward to that. So once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.